Tonight, NXT presents WWE NXT TakeOver 36 from the Capitol Wrestling Center in Orlando, Florida, inside the WWE Performance Center, of course. NXT TakeOver is taking place on a Sunday this week. Of course, it's the night after SummerSlam last night in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. And this is such a strange time. It's just a very strange time for NXT right now. Before I even recorded this video, this match preview of Karrion Kross versus Samoa Joe, which we're going to talk about, of course, the NXT Championship is on the line in the main event. Samoa Joe's first match inside of any pro wrestling ring, let alone a WWE ring, but any pro wrestling ring, his first pro wrestling match in about 18 months after him being on the shelf for, again, a year and a half due to concussions. It's just a really strange time for NXT right now. And the reason I say that is because before I started recording, I watched the interview with WWE President and CFO Nick Khan that he had with Ariel Helwani of BT Sport over here in the United Kingdom. Very rare access to Nick Khan. Of course, doesn't do a ton of interviews. You hear him on these media calls. Nick Khan's kind of become the boogeyman in recent months with all of these cuts and people being released and people losing their jobs, etc. Nick Khan's been the name thrown around as to the reason as to why, the guy behind all of these cuts. It's all Nick Khan. It's Nick Khan's doing. In reality, like Nick Khan said in his interview, ultimately it's a collaborative effort with one man making the final decision on everything, and that being Vince McMahon. So if people are going to start saying, oh, Nick Khan's doing this, Nick Khan's doing that, in reality it's Vince McMahon making that call. Nevertheless, in that interview that Nick Khan did with Ariel Helwani for BT Sport, NXT was discussed. Because NXT has been a hot topic, and not for the right reasons, in recent weeks and months, particularly in the most recent few weeks, because again, with these budget cuts, so many talents have been released from the NXT roster, reportedly not with Triple H's influence either. He just gets told so-and-so is getting cut or so-and-so is getting fired, and then they don't come back. That's kind of the situation with NXT right now. And we'd heard about this sort of different or changing, evolving, shall we say, philosophy when it comes to NXT and what the brand was going to look like going forward. There was a feeling within WWE that NXT had lost the Wednesday Night War. They were responsible for the rise of AEW, and because of that, NXT was no longer a third brand. NXT was no longer a third brand akin to a Raw or SmackDown. NXT was back to being what it was initially dreamt of by Triple H back in 2012, and that was a developmental territory. So gone are the days of WWE hiring talents from your Ring of Honors, your Impact Wrestlings, your MLWs, or just from the independent scene. Gone are those days. Instead, basically, what Nick Khan said is that they're looking to other forms of athletics, sports, and entertainment, looking to bring them in, mold them in their own grand WWE image, and create stars that way. Gone are the days of bringing in people that are experienced, over 30 years old. Gone are the days of bringing smaller talents built around work rate. WWE is now interested in bringing in younger talents that look bigger and can be molded into main event stars like Roman Reigns, etc. Now, Nick Khan revealed in this interview with Ariel Helwani that we should expect a complete revamp of NXT in the next few weeks. Sweeping changes are coming to the NXT brand, as Nick Khan said, in the next couple of weeks. Now, we had heard this report previously as well. The reports we had seen online said that NXT was going to be getting a complete overhaul, and that overhaul included new graphics, a new presentation, new lighting, new production, just a complete makeover, and what Nick Khan essentially referred to it as is a revamp, a rebrand, a restart. He's essentially saying that the NXT that we know right now, the NXT that we have known for the last, 7 years or so, that Triple H has built that brand into what was WWE's version of PWG, or WWE's version of the independent scene. That's what it was. It was WWE, and I don't know if it was always meant to be this, but this is what Triple H had turned it into. Essentially, it turned into WWE making their own independent brand. And the problem is with that is that Vince McMahon hates independent brands and hates independent wrestling. And after a while of building that up, the detractors in the WWE, which certainly Triple H have said, look, he built up this brand and it wasn't good enough to be AEW. Therefore, we should just go back to what it was before. It's developmental. Move it back to developmental. It's a developmental territory. And that's what it's going back to. So it does raise the question, what's going to happen with some of these more experienced stars on the NXT roster? One experienced star is currently the NXT champion, Karrion Kross. He's defending the NXT Championship against Samoa Joe tonight at NXT TakeOver 36 in the main event. There's reasons to be excited for this one. Of course, the reason to be excited mainly is that it marks the return to the ring of Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe has not wrestled since February of 2020, early February 2020. He sustained 2 concussions in close proximity, the last one being a very serious one on a commercial shoot for Monday Night Raw when he was going to be going through a table. That concussion, followed by a wellness violation, led to him being suspended and then led to him transitioning into being an announcer. He was an announcer for the best part of, 9 months, something like that? About 9 months or so. And after transitioning into announcer, he was then released by WWE. Subsequently, he was brought back to the NXT brand by Triple H. He was the enforcer. And finally, he was cleared for in-ring action. And now he's going to be wrestling once more. So that's exciting. The thing I have and the concern I have is that this new vision, this new philosophy of NXT doesn't fit with Samoa Joe. It's Samoa Joe, isn't it? The guy's, in his 40s, 40 at the very least. I guess the thing that you could possibly say is that Joe holds sort of dual roles now with WWE. Yes, he's working as a talent for NXT, but he's also working in scouting. He was there at the Vegas tryouts this past weekend. He was scouting. He's heavily involved in that. So maybe that's the way of saying, well, I'm just there to help out the other talent on the show. I'm kind of like an on-screen trainer, if you will. Maybe that's what they're going with the Wilds, because they're still going to be on USA Network, so they still need to have talent that's going to draw, right? So that's certainly interesting. When it comes to Karrion Kross, I would have been really, really excited for Samoa Joe versus Karrion Kross 2 months ago, let's say. But yeah, let's say about 2 months ago. I'd have been really excited for this because Karrion Kross, since coming into WWE, since signing with WWE in January of 2020, was undefeated. He had never lost on the NXT roster. I think he'd been involved in a tag team match which his team lost, but he himself in singles action, he had never lost. He had never been pinned, he had never been submitted, he had never lost a singles match in NXT. And he had defeated everyone, whether it was Adam Cole, whether it was Johnny Gargano, whether it was Damian Priest, whether it was Keith Lee, whether it was Finn Balor. He defeated them all. They smashed this guy over into this undefeatable, dominating top heel in the company, or on the brand rather. So I would have been really excited for that because we knew that Karrion Kross was inevitably going to go to the main roster. So seeing Joe versus Kross, there still would have been this discussion of, wow, Kross is still undefeated. That's going to be a big moment. They've built this up for about 18 months. Ironically, around the same time that Joe first got injured. So they've built it up this whole period of time. We would have had this big moment, big championship match. It would have felt very, very special. And then what happens? Karrion Kross gets called up to the main roster anyway, and he loses twice. He loses to Jeff Hardy in about 100 seconds. He then loses to Keith Lee as well. Now, he subsequently defeated them both on Monday Night Raw, but the shine's gone at this point, right? The shine is gone, and it just feels a bit redundant. We know that Samoa Joe's going to win, and I'm excited to see Joe wrestle because it's Samoa Joe. Why wouldn't you be excited to see Samoa Joe wrestle, especially when it's been so long, and especially considering how good Joe still is at this point? And I have no doubt that the match will be very good. But realistically at this point, it could have been so much more, and I guess the lack of excitement I have for the match itself is testament just to how NXT has just been brutalized over the course of the last couple of months or so. And this revamp that is coming up is just an indication that Vince McMahon and Nick Khan, I mentioned Nick Khan, but certainly Vince McMahon, has put his foot down. And he said, you know what, Paul, when referring to Triple H, enough's enough. I know you've tried with this brand, and I know for a period of time it might have been successful, but I don't want to do it that way anymore. we're going to go back to what we had before, and NXT is going to be developmental. You're going to only be signing these kind of talents. You're only going to be signing the talents in this age range, except for exceptional circumstances, and the rest are going to the main roster. Gone are the days of, I just want to stay in NXT. That's not happening anymore. And look, there are pros and cons for both there. I genuinely, I can kind of almost see Vince McMahon's rationale for this, because whilst NXT has generated and created, quite a few female talents, top female stars for WWE over the years, it certainly is a valid point of when was the last big male star rather that NXT created? Who is it? Because if you say Roman Reigns, he was in FCW. If you say Seth Rollins, he was in FCW. If you say Dean Ambrose, he was in FCW. Who? There isn't many. There isn't many. And realistically, maybe Vince McMahon and some others look at it and say, actually, are we really creating a ton of stars here? Bray Wyatt, I know people will say, well, Bray Wyatt's not with the company anymore. And he was in FCW first as well. So certainly since this Performance Center era of WWE and subsequently NXT, whilst a lot of talent comes and goes into those doors at the Performance Center, how many really are turned into megastars? Not many. Now, one could argue, realistically, that's got nothing to do with NXT and WWE. What it's got to do is, they get over in NXT, they get over on the black and gold brand, and when they come to the main roster, they change them, they strip them of the identity, and then go, oh, they're not over. Why aren't these guys over? Well, maybe it's because you ripped the character from them that got them over in the first place. Maybe that's the reason. And maybe it's a case of Vince McMahon finally going, look, yeah, we need to be more aligned on this. Because there obviously is something completely out of alignment between the character we see in NXT and the character we see on Raw and SmackDown. Now, some would say the way to actually align that would be the character that they use in NXT, just let them be that character on the main roster. Instead, what they have done, Vince McMahon has said, no, what we're going to do instead is I'm going to tell you what your character is going to be in NXT. I'm going to dictate what you're doing in NXT, so you'll do the same thing on the main roster, so there won't be that disconnect. So I almost credit them for trying to remove that disconnect, but it just, whenever you watch NXT right now, it just feels sad, doesn't it? It just feels sad because, one, you can't get invested because you don't know if the talent's going to be there however long, because they're going to get fired. But two, it's just sad because I used to be a big fan of NXT. I genuinely, and I don't say that as, as trying to mock anyone, but I was a fan of NXT. NXT in 2014, 2015 was awesome. It really, really was. It's like the golden era of NXT at this point. With Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and having Samoa Joe coming on, all of these guys. It was really exciting. And to what it's become now, a product that is quite boring and quite bland, and it now has completely just lost its identity and had its identity removed from it. That sort of cool indie promotion has disappeared now. And I don't know if it's ever going to come back. And this TakeOver 36 kind of feels like it's the beginning of, they'll call it a new chapter, but it's certainly the beginning of going back to being developmental. And it's a sad time, because there was a period of time where NXT was great and it was exciting, and we don't really know what it's going to be going forward, which is quite sad. And this was a brand that, maybe if the pandemic hadn't happened, look, the pandemic's changed a lot of things fundamentally, irrespective of pro wrestling. But if the pandemic hadn't happened, would have NXT had a better chance? Maybe. But it's difficult to say. The one thing we can say with certainty is that the version of NXT that we all used to love and enjoy is gone. And I don't know if that's coming back, unfortunately. As far as this match goes tonight, I think Karrion Kross obviously loses because he's going to be officially on the main roster on Monday Night Raw. So this will probably be his last NXT match. Samoa Joe will win and become the first ever man to hold the NXT Championship 3 separate times. So Samoa Joe are going to make a bit of history tonight by winning the NXT Championship for the 3rd time. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on NXT TakeOver 36 tonight? What are your predictions for Karrion Kross defending the NXT Championship against Samoa Joe? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash the like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, got the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.